Hello and welcome back to Bicycle Legs and another edition of Favourite Albums of the Year. Today I'm going to pick my top 10 favourite albums of 2024. Now I don't rank all of them because there's just so many different styles of music in this top 10. I don't really feel like it's a bit apples and oranges, if you know what I mean. So I don't know that sort of ranking them is a fair comparison, but when I've listed my 10, I will give you my favourite album of 2024. So what I've done is I've listed these 10 chronologically from like beginning of the year to end of the year as far as releases go. I will say the majority of these come from the second half of the year. The second half of this year has been really, really good for new releases. But we did start earlier in the year, and the first album that we're going to have a look at was released on the 1st of March 2024. A wonderful album by this band with a new lead singer, and that is The Likes of Us by Big Big Train. First release, as I say, first studio release with Alberto Braven as the lead singer, obviously taking over after the tragic loss a few years ago of David Longdon. He does a wonderful job, Alberto does. He sounds enough like David Longdon that he can handle the older material, but he's definitely his own man as far as vocals go and as far as writing goes. And he gets a fair few writing credits on this album. A lot of it is co-written between himself and Gregory Sporton, who's obviously the mainstay of the band's been there from the very, very beginning. You know, there's some good contributions from Nick DiVigilio as well. This is a really good album. It's probably, I think, might be one of the stronger albums of theirs since that sort of classic period after the English Electric albums. You know, you had Folklore and Grimm's Pound and things like that. This is right up there with that sort of classic period. I don't know if it's quite as good as the English Electric albums or the one that came before it, which the name is escaping me at the moment. But I've even done a show on it and I can't think of the name. But it's a really, really good album. I think it's the strongest of the last 3 or 4 albums that the band has done. Songs like Light Left in the Day, Oblivion, Beneath the Masts, Love is the Light, Skates On, Bookmarks, Last 11. It's a really, really strong album. Definitely well worth your time if you're into that sort of lush, pastoral, progressive rock with a bit of an edge as well. It's definitely got a rock edge. It's not just pastoral, it is progressive rock. So there is definitely some good rockin' elements in this album too. So yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't already. My second album, it was released on the 3rd of May 2024. It is the second year in a row that this artist has been in my top 10 of the year. They were my number 1 album in 2023. This year it's the Lemon Twigs. They're back with an album called A Dream Is All We Know. This could not be a more different album from the previous album, the one that they put out in 2023, which was called Everything Harmony. It was my favourite album of 2023. It's probably still my favourite Lemon Twigs album. This, though, is a really, really good album. As I say, polar opposite from A Dream Is All We Know. Everything Harmony. It's Everything Harmony was very sepia toned, quite dark. It was, you know, they were going through some emotional stuff when they were writing those songs. This is definitely more joyful, more upbeat, more that sort of shiny rainbow sort of 60s influence pop that they've always been so well known for. But I do feel like with this album, they went further out of their sort of musical influences than they have been on previous albums. And I really appreciate that about this album. I think My Golden Years is a wonderful opening track. They Don't Know How to Fall in Place is great. Church Bells, the title track is wonderful. Sweet Vibration, If You and I Are Not Wise, How Can I Love Her More. There's, you know, some of these songs have a bit of a glam thing going, you know, getting a bit 70s rather than 60s, which is, you know, a bit of a step out for this band, which I think is great. I should have known right from the start is great. Rock On definitely has that glam sort of feel to it. So another terrific album by the Lemon Twigs. Is it quite as good as Everything Harmony? Maybe not, but that's an incredibly high bar to clear. This is still, might still be my second or third favourite Lemon Twigs album. I love it. My number 3 album of the year was released on the 10th of May, 2024. It's a bit of a departure for this band as well. Maybe not so much musically, but certainly as in the way that the album was made. The album is called To Follow Polaris. The band is The Tangent, but with this particular album, The Tangent is Andy Tillison. He is the only person on this record. He plays everything on this record. He writes everything on this record. But even more than that, he produced it. He engineered it. He did a lot of the artwork for it. It's just, you know, this is a real genuine one-man show. It's even sort of subtitled as The Tangent for One. So it's a terrific album. If you like previous Tangent albums, you're going to love this because it's definitely musically very much in that Tangent wheelhouse. Great, great lyrics. You know, I mean, the thing I've always loved about the Tangent, I reviewed their previous album before this one a couple of years back. Their lyrics are not the sort of typical lyrics you get with a progressive rock band. They're much more down to earth. They're about real issues. They're about politics. They're about, you know, what's going on in the world today, that sort of thing. And I've always loved that about Andy Tillison's lyrics. Musically, absolutely wonderful. Influenced by just about every kind of 70s prog you can imagine, but also very much with a flavour of its own. And Andy also has, you know, little bits of, you know, he's not scared to go outside the sort of prog realm musically. And again, love that about him, you know. And, you know, this has an incredibly great epic track on it called The Anachronism. I know Scott Lade from the Prog Corner named it his Epic of the Year, and hard to argue with. But The North Sky is wonderful too, Alike in the Darkness, talking about, you know, sort of social media and that sort of thing. The Fine Line is great. The single from a reopened Time Capsule. And then on the vinyl and on the deluxe edition of the CD, you get this bonus track called Tea at Betty's. And I think it's one of the, it's just a terrific track. I mean, how it got left off the regular version of the album, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you needed something as a bonus track for those deluxe editions and whatever. But it's every bit, you know, it's not a leftover from the cutting room floor or whatever. Not to me, my ears anyway. To me, it's every bit as good as all the rest of the music on this album. Absolutely terrific album. If you're into your progressive rock and you haven't listened to this album, do yourself a favor and check it out because it is absolutely marvelous. Next album we're going to have a look at was released on the 23rd of August 2024. I've done a 1-minute review short on this one. I think it's a stunning album, and that is Powder Dry by Tim Bonus. Now, much like the Tangent album we were just talking about, Tim Bonus plays and sings everything on this album and wrote it all himself as well. It's the first time he's ever done anything like that. You know, Tim Bonus is mostly known as a vocalist. He's not really known as an instrumentalist. Not that he hasn't played instruments on records before, but he's usually been the singer, the front man, that sort of thing. So to do an album where you play everything on the album, to me it just makes it that much more an impressive task. What's more, this is a wonderful album. It's experimental. It's, you know, as I said in my 1-minute review, it's by turns delicate and savage, and it will turn on the, you know, on a dime between delicate and savage. It's absolutely wonderful. It's experimental, but it's still got pop sensibilities. It's just a terrific album. You know, Rock Hudson, the lead track, is great. When Summer Comes, Stand Up for the Dying, Films of Our Youth, You Can Always Disappear. Most of these songs are relatively short too, you know. Most of them are under 3 minutes. There's a couple of longer songs that are over the 4-minute mark, but most of them are under 3 minutes. Quite a lot of them around 2 minutes or even less. So, you know, you get 8 songs per side, 16 songs on the album overall. It's a really, really wonderful album. And, you know, if you're into that sort of experimental pop, art pop, that sort of thing, this is an album you could really, really like, and I would definitely recommend it. I could say a lot of that about this next album too. This album was released, well, actually no, before we get to that, I have one album that was also released on the 23rd of August that I am still trying to track down a copy of. This has been an absolute bugbear for the last 3-4 months for me, because I ordered it from 2 different places, and both times they had it on back order. I waited weeks and weeks, they still didn't have it in, so I had to cancel the order. I finally ordered a copy of it a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, it hasn't turned up in time for the show, so I can't sort of stick up a copy and show it to you, but I will obviously put some graphics up for it. And that is the album True by John Anderson and the Band Geeks. And wow, what a return to form this is. I quite like the last couple of Yes albums. I don't love them, but I quite like them. This is a much better album than those last 2 Yes albums, in my humble opinion. I think John Anderson, he was 79 when he recorded this album. He's 80 now. His voice is still incredible for a 79-year-old man. He may be a note or 2 lower than he was in his sort of peak Yes days from the 70s and 80s, but the quality of his voice, the timbre of his voice is just still incredible. It doesn't sound cracked, it doesn't sound aged, it still sounds pure, but still powerful as well. And the songs that he's written with the Band Geeks, terrific, terrific songs. Again, you know, if you're a Yes fan and you haven't checked this album out, True by John Anderson and the Band Geeks, absolutely check it out. There's also just recently a live video of John Anderson and the Band Geeks playing And You and I, and check that out on YouTube if you haven't already too, because it's a stunning version of that song that they do. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, the next album we're going to look at was released on the 1st of October 2024, and I've done a 1-minute review on this one as well. So do check that out if you haven't already. More sort of experimental art pop, and that is Limits of Language by Field Music. Now, this album is, you know, I mean, I've been a Field Music fan for a long, long time. I came in, I think, on the album Plum. I think I saw a track of theirs from that Plum album recommended by Jimmy Keegan, who was formerly in Spock's Beard. And I listened to it, loved it, bought the album, and have been a huge Field Music fan ever since. You know, they've always been that sort of alternative rock, definite pop hooks, you know, getting a bit funky at times. This album, though, definitely more experimental, less about the immediate pop hooks. It's more synthy as well, but it's not synth pop in that respect. It's just, there's a lot more keyboards and synthesizers rather than guitars on this album. Still that wonderful, wonderful drum sound that Field Music get, and we'll talk about that a bit when we talk about our next album too. I love the drum sound they get on their records. You know, most of this again is just Peter and David Brewis, just the 2 Brewis brothers playing pretty much everything. They have a couple of guests on one song, but yeah, terrific album. 6 Weeks, 9 Wells is great. The Guardian of Sleep, title track is wonderful. Sounds About Right. Curfew in the Square, Turn the Hours Away. I Might Have Been Wrong. This is a terrific album. It's really, really great art rock, art pop, you know, it's one of my favorites of the year. It's a terrific album. Can't recommend it highly enough. Now, this is a bit related to field music because this next artist actually plays keyboards in the live band of field music. I found out about it because they tweeted this album out. It's a terrific album, and it's a debut album by this artist. It's called We Need New Eyes, and it's by Liz Corney. And if you like the earlier sort of field music, you know, where it does have the more pop hooks and immediacy, this album will really, really appeal to you. Liz is very much her own artist, though. I mean, you know, it's a terrific album, and I've got to say, look at this beautiful vinyl. There's only 100 of these in the world. Look at that. I mean, just gorgeous. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful album. Great songs. Things like New Eyes, Bathroom Windows, Ceremonies, Listen to Yourself, Drive at Night, Common Denominator. She's a great vocalist. She's a great keyboardist. I think it's David Brewis who provides a lot of the other instrumentation, guitar, bass, drums, and it has that wonderful field music drum sound. So I'm really, really happy about that as well. So great album. Probably none of you have ever heard of this album. I definitely recommend checking it out on Bandcamp and buying a copy if you can, if they're not already sold out, because this was limited to 100 pressings, this vinyl. So it's just absolutely wonderful. Maybe you can still get the CD or a download of it. It's definitely worth it. Probably it's a wonderful, wonderful pop album. Between this and the Lemon Twigs album for my pop album of the year, I think. The next album might be my favorite progressive rock album of the year, and as you'll see, I'm listing quite a few progressive rock albums too. It's been a good year for prog rock. I've got to thank Scott Lade from the Prog Corner for letting me know about this album. This was one of those albums that I went on to streaming and decided to check out, and basically partway through the second song I was already on my phone ordering a copy, finding it. Absolutely wonderful. The album is Songs for Beating Hearts by Beardfish. I don't own a lot of Beardfish. I definitely need to rectify that. I mostly know Rickard, who's sort of the leader of Beardfish, from his work with Big Big Train. This is definitely made me want to go and get the rest of the Beardfish catalogue. I've got one of their other albums on CD, but I definitely need to get the rest of their catalogue because this album is terrific. As I say, it's probably my favourite progressive rock album of 2024, and I've still got a couple to talk about there. So, and as much as I know Scott picked that wonderful Tangent track as his epic of the year, what was it again? The Anachronism. Yeah, terrific song. My epic of the year might be Out in the Open, which is on this album. Wonderful 5-part epic. The album starts with the wonderful Ecotone as well, the title track, or Beating Hearts. In the autumn, you get a little reprise of Ecotone, and then you get this wonderful song called Torrential Downpour. Top to bottom, absolutely fantastic album. Also, a definite contender for my album of the year. Next album I'm going to have a look at was released on the 8th of November 2024, so we've had some really great releases in November because the last one will be in November as well. It's a long-standing progressive rock artist, but working with a band he's never worked with before. In fact, they may have, I don't know exactly, but they may have been formed specifically for this album. The album is No Hill for a Climber by Neil Morse and the Resonance. This has that absolutely characteristic Neil Morse sound to it. You know, that sort of Spock's beard sound, the transatlantic sound, those early Neil Morse solo albums. You know, He kind of evolved into a different sound a little bit with the Neil Morse Band albums. And that's still good. I still really like those albums. But I think this is kind of really scratches my Neil Morse itch as far as sound goes. Great songwriting. Lyrics are very spiritual, very religious. And, you know, I'm not a religious guy, but I can still appreciate them. But for me, it's the music that really draws me to this album. You get the wonderful, you know, you've got two epics that bookend this album. One that takes up all of side one that takes up all of sides 3 and 4. So you've got Eternity in Your Eyes on side 1, which is wonderful. It's split up into 7 sections. On sides 3 and 4, you get, in 6 sections, you get the title track, No Hill for a Climber. Terrific, soaring, progressive rock music. And then you get 3 shorter songs on side 2, which are all really, really good too. You get Thief, All the Rage, and Ever Interceding. Can't recommend this album highly enough. If you're a Neil Morse fan, go and get into this because it's a really, really great album. And then the last album of my top 10 that we're going to look at was released on the 22nd of November 2024. I wasn't sure if I was going to like this album, but I've turned out to like it a whole hell of a lot. And that is The Last Will and Testament by Opeth. I was a bit trepidatious about this because I am not a death metal guy. I really hopped on the Opeth train with Heritage when they stopped doing the growls and it was all clean vocals. I've been a big fan of all the albums ever since. I have gone and got some of the earlier albums, and some of them I like and some of them I still struggle with, even though there's some great music on it, because I'm not a death growls guy. And knowing that the death growls were back on this album, I was really like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this album as much. I tell you what, this is a fantastic album. The growls make sense in the context of the album. This is a concept album. You know, it's basically the last will and testament of this sort of patriarch of this family, you know, sort of in between World Wars 1 and 2. It's really great, you know, sort of getting into all the excesses of these rich families and, you know, all the sordid details and all that sort of thing. You've got Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull doing some great narration and playing some brilliant flute on here. This album musically is not death metal. There's definitely metal elements, but it's progressive rock, it's progressive metal, there's folk elements, there's classical elements, there's orchestral parts, there's harp in some of these tracks. I can't really talk about the tracks because apart from the last song, they're all basically just named by chapter numbers. So, but it's a really, really good album. It did still take me a little bit of getting used to, I have to admit, with the death growls, but as I've listened to it more and more, I've really come to warm to this album. And yeah, I'm here for this Opeth. This musically, I think this might be the best Opeth, the most I've liked an Opeth album just for the music behind it. Maybe even since Heritage. As much as I love the albums that come after, I think this is wonderful. It's dark, it's moody, it's ominous. Terrific. Anyway, I did promise you I would tell you what my favourite album of the year was. In fact, I'm going to give you a top 3. And at number 3, I'm going to go for Beardfish's Songs for Beating Hearts. This is just an incredible album. Love it to death. At number 2, I'm going to go for Tim Bonus's Powder Dry. Again, amazing album, really groundbreaking, experimental, out there. Not really like anything else in Tim Bonus's solo catalogue or in No Man or any other things that he's done. Just a terrific album, and just the way he's managed to put it all together himself and step out and just do this amazing work. Terrific. But my favorite album of 2024, Limits of Language by Field Music. It's, yeah, what can I say? It's maybe my favorite Field Music album so far, and that's really saying a lot because I've loved all of the Field Music albums. Loved every single one of them. I don't think any of them's under an 8 out of 10 for me. But this one, there's just something special about it. There's experimentalism, but it's still got that wonderful field music sound, which is really hard to describe. They really don't sound like any other band. You really need to check them out. But that's my favorite album of 2024, Limits of Language by Field Music. There you have it. That's my top 10 albums of 2024. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite albums of 2024 are. I'd love to know because there are a lot of albums I haven't had a chance to check out this year. And if you give me good recommendations in those comments, I will definitely check those albums out. Please do like, share and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please go and have a look at some of my other videos. I have everything playlisted, so if you want to see some of my other previous favorite albums of the year shows, I've done ones for 2021, 2022 and 2023. I have a playlist for those. If you want to see some of my studio albums ranked shows, I have a playlist for those. And if you want to see my appearances on other people's channels, I also have a playlist for those. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at bicyclelegs on Instagram, Twitter, and a bunch of other places. I also have a dedicated Bicyclelegs Facebook page. Links are all in the doobly-doo. Please do give those all a follow and join in the conversation. I'd really love to have you there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.